welcome to a very special edition of Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast. That's right, folks. May the 4th be with you as we jump into a brand new era of Star Wars. Now, exactly, this May the 4th is notable because on Disney Plus, we're getting new, not episodes, but I believe it's a whole 8 episodes, the same number as the real series of The Mandalorian, of a making of documentary, which I'm very excited to watch today. Well, I'm recording Sunday, but this is being indeed released on Monday, the 4th of May, or Star Wars Day, May the 4th. Also coming out today is the not so incredible Rise of Skywalker, also hitting Disney Plus for free. Well, I mean, you pay for Disney Plus. We all have it like Netflix, so it seems like it's free. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, today I am here alone, just doing this intro because I will be, well, I have COVID-19 for real. We're not talking about it for any other reason. This won't be a COVID-19 show. It's just I have it. So we didn't record a real show this week, but we'll be revisiting the Rise of Skywalker conversation had by Jammer, Jonesy, Pete, and Tanya. Of course, you can always check out Pete's other content at the Nerds Adulting podcast, which is not on our network, but you can easily find it online. Follow at Nerds Adulting with a 3 instead of an E is the best place to find Pete as well. You can check out stuff there. Of course, you know all the LRM stuff here. Jammer's our editor-in-chief. Jonesy's usually the fearless leader of Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast. Tanya has been my co-host these last few months, as we've done it without Jones. But in case you're new to the show, this is what those fellows sound like. Now, before I get into their discussion, I was not on said episode of Rise of Skywalker. I did discuss it 4 hours on Last Call, Kyle's old Star Wars podcast. But I did not get to put my 2 cents in on this episode. So in this introduction, I'm going to just say that Rise of Skywalker is a giant disappointment, mostly because it undoes everything, not only in episode 7, which I like a lot, no, 8, which I enjoy a lot, but it also makes the original trilogy pointless because it's the same story. Nothing Luke did made any difference to save the world because Rey had to do it all over again in the exact same way. And who cares about Palpatine and why is he back and why is this a Palpatine saga? You know, I don't need to give a long review. You know the idea. So with that little intro here, let us jump into the Rise of Skywalker special edition review. It is the same one you've heard before, but now that it has this intro, it's a special edition. I added new material like George Lucas. So while I kind of sit back here with Corona, enjoy May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. And let's hop into our conversation about Rise of Skywalker when we had just seen it back in December. Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast, the premier podcast of LRM Online. I'm your host, Brandon Jones, and with me this week, I've assembled a crack team of Star Wars experts and sycophants and passive viewers for your listening pleasure. On this podcast, we've got Pete. Pete, how's it going?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and thanks for being here. Tanya, how's it going?
Things are well. Things are great.
Good. And Jammer, how's it going?
So I've spent 4 hours talking about Star Wars. I've written probably more than a handful of articles about Star Wars already, and now I'm ready to talk another couple hours or hour and a half on Star Wars. So I'm exhausted. That's what I am.
Let me ask you, do you feel like it's warranted?
Yeah, why not? It's a big movie that people like. People like breaking things down. I like breaking things down. Why not?
Okay. Well, so I guess the reason why I ask is I will probably get into it a little bit deeper, but when I watched The Last Jedi, there were questions that were asked, and I was like, these things are kind of interesting to talk about. Like, whether you did or didn't like the movie was the least interesting thing to me, but what they tried to do with the lore is what I thought was interesting to talk about, and with this one, I was exhausted by it.
Oh, wait, so you're talking about The Last Jedi for the last one?
Yeah, so watch The Last Jedi, and I was like, these are interesting questions that they're doing with the lore. And this one, I was so exhausted by the end of it out of frustration that I just didn't, I couldn't hate it. I was just like, I'm just tired. And I love this movie because it's over. Like, that's how I felt.
It's like at the end of the movie, I'm just sitting there like, there's so many thoughts running through my head right now, just because of everything that happened. You just kind of sit there, almost like, what? That's kind of the feeling that I had.
All we've done all this time.
What are you doing there, 3PO?
Taking one last look, sir, at my friends.
Confronting fear. It's the destiny of a Jedi. Your destiny. We're all in this. Till the end.
So let's start there. Pete, when you walked out of the theater, when you saw this, what was your gut reaction, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Oh, gut reaction, I would say thumbs down. It just felt like almost like a big FU to The Last Jedi, in my opinion, for like just coming out of that theater. Seemed like almost it was like a big apology or trying to retcon a lot of stuff. It kind of felt like walking out of that theater. So it was more of like a thumbs down. It's just weird me saying that because I didn't really enjoy The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I thought that was a fascinating answer from you, given how you did feel about that movie. Jammer, same question. Gut reaction, thumbs up, thumbs down when you walked out.
I enjoyed the movie, but I knew the more I thought about it or the more I would talk about it, the less I would probably like it. Mm-hmm. So for someone who's interested in Star Wars, yeah, go see it. Just if someone wants to be a conversation, sure, go see it. I think you'll probably have an okay time in the theater, but I had a lot of problems with it along the lines of what Pete was talking about, but also along other lines. Just there were a lot of problems, but that didn't make the movie from being enjoyable, especially for me for the first half. The second half, I think the second half for me was silly as shit, but that we'll get into that later.
Okay. So normally what we do on this podcast is we talk about, the Metacritic score and the cinema score and the Rotten Tomatoes score, but I like to focus on the Rotten Tomatoes score and the cinema score for these movies. So The Force Awakens came in on a critic score of 93 and 86 for the audience score. Okay, that's Force Awakens. Okay. Episode 8, The Last Jedi, you got 91% for the critics, 43% for the viewers. And as of right now, The Rise of Skywalker is rotten at 57% with the critics, but an 86% with the general public, which I thought was fascinating. And this is only the second rotten Star Wars movie. Can either of you guess, or any of you, the three of you, guess which was the other one? Did you know that, or did you just guess?
I knew it. I probably shouldn't have participated in this question.
Cheater. I thought that was kind of fascinating that this is the only other rotten one, that the critical reception to this movie is just that negative.
I mean, especially how shit the second one was. Attack of the Clones. That was rough. That was a nightmare. That was my nightmare.
Yeah. And so to bring it back to the cinema score, Attack of the Clones has an A- cinema score, and this only has a B+.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, so let's run them down. I'll run them down in order. So The Phantom Menace, A- cinema score. Attack of the Clones, A-. Revenge of the Sith, A-. The Force Awakens, A. Rogue One, A. The Last Jedi, A. Solo, A-. Rise of Skywalker, B+.
So how do you trust their rating system with that kind of? I would call Phantom Menace a control for what qualifies as a good or bad movie. And if you're calling Phantom Menace that, I can't trust any of the rest of your fucking ratings.
I mean, basically the way it's done, they just poll specific theaters around the country. I don't know specifically how it's done, but it's been like they've been doing it for decades, and it's kind of a go-to metric for how general audiences feel about it.
Then your data's bad.
It is literally just a survey. They just go to people.
Opinions change over time. Opinions change over time. Like,
if
I know
I
when
was
the
using
Phantom Menace came
statistical
out,
software that kicked back to me that 2 + 2 is 5, I would think my data was fucking bad and something was wrong with my machine.
I don't know if I think I'd argue with you on that, simply because I feel like an opinion of a movie is different from an objective truth.
You would be wrong.
And I think the context matters, right? So Phantom Menace gets an A- only because it comes in at, how many years after Return of the Jedi. It's like that Eddie Murphy joke where you've been eating crackers for 20 years and then somebody gives you a saltine. You're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. It's like or basically you were eating crackers for 20 years or 10 years, then someone took all the crackers and said they're outlawed, and then 20 years after that someone says, "Okay, here are the crackers again." And then you're like, "Oh, great." Except maybe they weren't made as well. There was a different recipe, but it was close enough to where you were happy at that moment. But over time realized that the cracker wasn't nearly as good as the other crackers. And that's because another competitor out there brought out another cracker and reminded you how good the other crackers were. And the ones that you actually had from the original company are shit.
These crackers are stale. They're stale. And moldy.
But here's the thing. Even given that context, I cannot explain Attack of the Clones. Like Phantom Menace, I can understand to some extent, and also because it ended well. Like that.
I can explain Attack of the Clones. Let
me hear that.
Because general audiences like action, and it had some pretty cool action scenes for audiences who don't care for audiences who don't really care that much, and also general audiences who just wanted to have like this idea in their head of Yoda being a badass. They get to see Yoda being a badass, even if it really isn't true to the character or style. I'm not the one who gave it an A-, Brandon. I'm just explaining the data.
I don't know if I'm buying what you're selling.
So you're saying that people cheering when they saw Yoda.
Something doesn't make that argument valid. Just because your words strung together to make that like it makes sense.
I'm taking the data. I was given the data. I'm trying to interpret why the data was skewed in the specific way. I'm not justifying the data. I'm just explaining.
We're going around manufactured numbers. We're not going to even say like that's the fucking possibility. We're just going to have this conversation as if that doesn't exist.
You know what I love?
I'm not saying the movie is.
We haven't even talked about the movie.
I wouldn't give it an A. I wouldn't give it an A-. I would give it I don't know what I'd give it. I don't even care anymore about that movie. But my point is that the data, you're right. It is fallible, Tanya. That is correct. It is fallible data because people are fickle and they change their minds based on what they last saw. Like, oh, that was fun. And then 5 minutes later, they're like, nah, it wasn't. I thought about it. And then also you have the fandom conversation and that changes their perspective. And then people learn things over time and like, oh yeah, that was a bad movie. So it's so many factors. When you're talking about opinions here, it's all shit.
Do I think this belongs in a vault with Song of the South? Of course not. Do I think this belongs in a vault with Shawshank Redemption? No. I think there are things that are objectively bad and objectively good.
Interesting.
And I'm going to be quiet because I haven't seen the movie that we're here to talk about. And
don't worry, we haven't even talked about the movie yet.
It's a great start.
I feel like
great start.
When you see Rise of the Skywalker, Tanya, you have to tell me what object you throw at the TV.
Yeah, you're going to hate it.
Yeah, at some point you're going to see it and you're going to throw something at the TV.
Next time you visit, Tanya, you can watch it with us.
God damn it, that's what's going to happen, isn't it? You're going to put it on, I'm not going to be able to get away from it. Motherfucker.
Just going to go to the bathroom and come back to the crawl.
I know, and I'm not going to just not visit.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm just going to be like, I don't really want to watch this, but I really want you to watch this. So this is going to happen.
And then you're going to leave you and Kirsten to go for a hike. Take the remotes with you so I can't turn it off. Oh, God. Clockwork Orange. Anyway.
So, Jammer, it sounds like you enjoy this movie more than either Pete or I. What worked for you in this movie?
So here's the thing.
What's the thing?
I think a lot of times it's, and this is true for myself too. Like we tend to sort of look at things as either really bad or really good, and we don't just say like, hey, there are some movies that aren't really, really bad, but they're okay, and aren't really amazing either. But they're just like, they have watchable moments, they have bad moments, but they're still enjoyable in some ways. So what worked for me in this movie, I liked some of the chemistry with the main cast. I liked when they were together. That chase scene at the beginning I thought was really fun. It kind of felt Indiana Jones-ish at the beginning, even though it was moving too fast for my slow-addled mind. But it had fun moments, had fun little moments here and there, fun interactions, and it had a nice feeling and overall film competence or film craft competence, even if its story competence wasn't quite there. So it had its moments here and there, and I think a lot of the stuff with Kylo Ren and Rey ultimately worked most of the time. So it had threads working here and there. So it had some stuff going for it. I just don't think it came together well. Some of the stuff that they built on from the previous movies, the stuff that they didn't retcon, I think worked. But basically anything else that they tried to turn around and retcon didn't work for me. So it's a very disparate set of things that I liked and didn't like, but I think that kind of describes the movie perfectly for me anyway.
Okay. Pete, was there anything that you did like about the movie?
I think Jammer pretty much is spot on. The beginning seemed weird, like the scenes were flashing. It felt like the pacing was pretty quick in the beginning. I liked all the characters together. I liked seeing Poe and Rey arguing. That was kind of funny, and just seeing them together, the chemistry was really good. But I kind of felt like every so often they needed to remind you that they're together. You know, like there's one scene where Lando was like, he's talking with Poe as like the general, and he's like, what did you do? Like, how do you handle this? He's like, oh, we had each other. It's almost like reminding us that they were separated in The Last Jedi, but nope, now they're together. So those things kind of just threw me off. Like, I felt like they were trying to apologize for The Last Jedi in moments like that. But I really liked seeing them together. I enjoyed that. And I think for some reason I can't quite put my finger on, but Kylo and Rey's scenes together, even in The Last Jedi and this, were just really good, I felt like. So outside, like you said, there, I don't want to get into the ending, but there was something that happened at the end I wasn't really a big fan of. But for the most part, I think Kylo and Rey worked together pretty well.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most earned aspects of it. As far as the chemistry, I think one section that I think really epitomized what I like about it. I like bantery, bitchy dialogue when people are just kind of at each other's throats because it's fun. And they had some of that in this movie that I thought was really funny. And I know some Star Wars fans like, I don't like jokes in my movie. Well, whatever. But like that moment where you find out that what's his name, Poe was a spice runner, and what was it? John Boyega says like, you were a spice runner. He's like, you were a stormtrooper, and then
you were a scavenger.
Like,
we could do this all day.
Yeah, that was great. I love that part. I love that kind of back and forth that they had between the characters was really fun. So whenever they had moments like that, I was on board.
Finn had a couple of looks, like when you see Poe doing something, and Finn just kind of looked like, I feel like what the audience was looking, and it's just they're poking fun at it, like, what? How do you know how to do this? And he's just like looking at him. I totally agree. Like, see, I wish we could have gotten more Finn and Poe, because it calls back to The Force Awakens when they first meet. They had really good interactions then, and they kind of missed that, from the previous movie. So.
Yeah, and it's funny that both of you say that. So, Jammer, you said it was moving really fast for an adult mind, and Pete, you said it was flashy. I don't know if either of you saw that the Epilepsy Foundation was like, "Yeah, this movie can cause seizures."
I actually thought
see
that was cool, the way they did it, because they didn't just have strobe lights going on.
Cool, you could have seizures.
No, the way they shot it was, so for example, if you have these shots of the Emperor at the beginning, by the way, I didn't like the fact that they had the Emperor, but I kind of liked the way they made him feel really threatening at the beginning in a unique way. But the way they had these strobe lights was, it's like you have a shot of somebody, right? If I'm just sitting here and you have a shot on me with specific lighting, rather than just strobing and having me talk, it seems like they did multiple takes of talking with different lighting, and they would just cut between the different things so that it would feel like really jagged and almost stop motiony. So, and I know they did that with Rey later on as well, and it was just really cool. I was like, oh, that's a cool filming technique. I think that's how they did it. I don't know for sure, but it felt like it.
Okay. I think I'm in agreement with you guys that the beginning of this movie worked for me. I love the chemistry between these characters, and I think it's a testament to the casting that, even though they were separated for a lot of this trilogy, watching them together in this lets you know kind of where they missed the mark in making these movies. Like, they should have been together for the majority of these films. And even though the beginning of this was kind of like a glorified fetch quest, they even had Poe dressed up as Nathan.
Wayfinder. They had a Wayfinder. It literally was a fetch quest.
Yeah, it was. And that's weird to me because I could get into the lore about this, but I don't understand why they called it a Wayfinder as opposed to a holocron.
Yeah.
Because that, for at least Star Wars fans, if this movie is what I think it is, which is what Pete called it, just an apology letter to people that have been kind of irritated with this, calling it a holocron would have gotten you some points. Yeah. Calling it a Wayfinder makes people like us like, what? What is that?
I think it speaks to J.J. Abrams' filmmaker style, where he's very much a filmmaker who likes to boil things down to their essence and make it as easy as possible for people to jump onto. And I think holocron would have just been a word that he was like, why call it that when an easy word is just a wayfinder? Because that's what it is. It's a wayfinder. You don't need to explain what it is. It's just, it is what it is. And then you can get going. That's probably what it was.
Put that into like a small thing of dialogue. You could have been like, you could have just said the holocron, which is a wayfinder, and boom, that's it. That's all you need.
Don't get me wrong. You're absolutely right. I'm just thinking what J.J. Abrams probably would have thought. He's like, why waste a line of dialogue when you can just call it a wayfinder?
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting that for the fetch quest they had Poe Dameron dressed as Nathan Drake from Uncharted. Guess exactly what he looked like to me with a little scarf.
You know what? I didn't even think about that. That's really funny that you brought that up.
It's totally him. Yeah.
Just waiting for him to go do some parkour and start climbing along walls and stuff.
I thought the humor was mostly good. There were a couple of things that didn't work for me. So we'll kind of get into that in the spoilers. But once they told you kind of what the plot of this movie was, I was done. I checked out.
Yeah.
But I really liked everything up until the movie revealed itself to be like, this is what we're going to be doing for the rest of the movie, and I was just not interested. And
the plot is the least interesting thing of this movie for me.
Yeah. Yep.
I was thinking about, like, I'm pretty much tired within these Star Wars movies that you have one like solution to solve the movie or the problem. You know, like you got that with the Death Star, and then you had that with Starkiller Base, and then you had that with this movie. I felt like that was played out
because they're all Death Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the reason why. It's because they're all Death Stars in some form or fashion, which is another reason why this trilogy sucks.
Whoa, calm down.
This trilogy is not good. And I was going to ask you a question later,
disagree.
but as a whole,
I mean, I love the first two movies. The third one just doesn't work for me, but it has its moments, but I really like the first two.
The third one ignored the second movie in its entirety almost should tell you a lot about why this trilogy sucks. And I will say this, and then we can get into spoilers. While I don't like the prequels as a whole, the thing that I do like about them...
Don't say it.
Listen,
don't say it.
Listen. The thing that I like about them is that it's one vision, and it's just like straight through. You don't have to like it. And I'm not saying that I like it. But this like mumbo jumbo corporate cobble of fucking trilogy together bullshit that they did just does not work. And I don't think you can lay that at anybody else's feet but corporate. And
I can agree with that.
It's so frustrating. And
there was no plan. There was no
plan.
Yeah, they didn't put together.
Here's the thing. I think it would have worked.
Before you say what the thing is.
Okay.
Before you say what the thing is, here's the other part of it. They wrote The Force Awakens, and then Rian Johnson finished writing his movie and script, and there was no time they didn't adjust for any kind of reaction to The Force Awakens. He just made his movie. This movie is
Hold on. Do you know that for a fact?
Yes.
Okay.
He said it.
Okay.
This movie is a movie that was made out of a place of fear, like abject, complete, obvious fear.
This was Justice League.
And it's like me as an audience member, I'm almost like a dog or a shark. I can smell it all over this movie, and it just makes me want to tear it apart. Like, I just hate it. I hate everything about that. And it feels like cowardice, and it just makes me feel like, again, you had no vision. Because vision is what allows you to push past that, right? If you have some sort of idea of where this is going when you made The Force Awakens, which J.J. Abrams, again, said that they didn't. They just made that movie. And they're like, I guess we'll figure out where this goes afterwards. Like, do you understand what you have in this property? And you
apparently not. I don't think they did.
It just bothers me because there was this corporate position of, we will just make this movie, and because it's Star Wars, people will come and see it, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do afterwards. And that's just frustrating to me.
I completely agree.
So I want to argue on behalf of another approach that I don't, because I like the idea of filmmakers having their own vision for each chapter of a trilogy. So I liked that one vision was J.J. Abrams and another vision was Rian Johnson. And I think this could have also been another one that ended strongly. However, where I think it fumbled and where I think they really messed up was just having the previous film not retcon answers already established. I think that's the main thing. And if he had built on what had come before and then pivoted onto a different answer, onto a different conclusion, I think it would have been perfectly fine. I think it would have been totally A-okay, and we would have had 3 movies with sort of 3 distinct visions that would have culminated in something that felt logical. I don't necessarily think you always have to have a plan when moving forward. I think that's, yeah, it's nice, but I don't think it's necessary.
I think you can balance that, though. I think you can balance that. I think you can have an overall vision of these 3 movies and then have each director or each writer.
You can. I don't think it's 100% necessary, though. I think ideally, yes. But here's the thing. I think you have to. I like the idea of, yes, we have Marvel movies. We have what they do. We have a lot of other movies where they have an overarching plan. I don't mind having a movie franchise where they're letting each filmmaker do their own actual thing without having to micromanage every little thing. I kind of like that idea. I just think in the future, if you do that, make sure they actually respect what came before.
Yeah, here's the difference between what you're talking about. Micromanaging is not the same thing as saying, don't fucking kill Snoke, I need him for the next movie. Mm-hmm. That is different. So there have to be beats that had to have been the same between the two of these. I don't care what Kathleen Kennedy or J.J. Abrams say going forward. Their intention was not to kill Snoke, flat out. Mm-hmm. And it's weird to me that they allowed it to happen. It just seems to me that the fact that this movie started with a bin of Snoke parts to explain
they're called Snones.
What happened? Snones. Yeah. But the fact that like they have to like slowly pan over like, no, this motherfucker's just a clone. And we just got a bin of just Snoke parts. Lets me know that they didn't even have the big beats picked out. So I agree with you in the sense that I don't want micromanagement. But when I say vision,
clones?
Yeah, there's Snoke clones. Who's like there's a whole Snoke clones. Oh. Yeah, Snoke was made by the Emperor as clones.
There's a throwaway line.
Strawberry and blueberry flavor.
Man, do you want to?
No, but like I said, it is possible to have. It is possible not to have an overarching vision. And also to still have a third film that doesn't start off with a bin of Snones. That's my point, is if you respect what came before, pivot off of it and continue forward, you can avoid the bin of Snones without actually having a plan and actually making a good ending. Like, it's possible. That is my point. There's not one way to do it. Ideally, yes, it could have been that way, but I don't think it's the only way. I guess I
agree. In order to do that, you can't be afraid of the fandom, which they were.
I agree.
Right. What you're describing requires backbone, which they don't have.
What they should have did, I said this is funny because the very first podcast I ever did with Brandon was we talked about The Last Jedi. I didn't like a lot of stuff about it. And reflecting on that, I said in that podcast that even though I didn't like the things that they did in that movie, they need to stick with it in the next. And I said that 2 years ago. And I would have been more okay with that, I think, than with the decisions they made in this movie, which just it doesn't. And I get what you're saying, Jammer. What I agree with you, it can be done. But then again, how many movies are there where you have 6 previous movies to go off of? You have fans of 6 prior movies that spans over 30 years, and like how do you mitigate that? How do you navigate the story and the movies when you're doing another trilogy after that? That's where I'm saying a plan for something like this is needed. If you're starting fresh with a new franchise, yeah, you could do that. I think more easy than with this new trilogy. The problem is you had 6 previous movies where we had all these expectations built. I was even guilty of it with The Last Jedi. I had an expectation already set by these other movies that had come out. So I think that's why with this one, there should have been more of a plan and more of a general consensus. And then, like you said, have each director take their spin on it. And I think they really missed the mark on this one by being scared and not sticking to what Rian Johnson laid out before them.
Yeah.
And not even just that. It's if it's going to conclude the trilogy, then you really need a plan. Like if your idea is that we're going to make these 3 movies and the third one is going to be the end, you need a plan. That's my 2 cents.
I disagree. But okay.
Was that
But actually,
all right.
was that a literal bin of clones? Or
yes, there is. No, that's
an
legit what it
actual
is.
bin.
Yeah, like a legit like test
like
tube,
a
not test
jar.
tube, like not a jar. What are those things? Those vertical pillars full of liquid that
Oh
have
God, like
that
Venture
full of
Brothers
snows.
or like Rick and Morty.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you weren't
that.
being hyperbolic. It's an
No.
actual.
Nope.
Literally what it
Yes.
is.
It is a
So-
tank of clones. I'm sorry,
guess-
a tank of Snoke clones.
When I look at the prequel trilogy, though, the first thing that comes to my mind is not, oh, he had a cohesive vision. No, he didn't. Like he did not. I look at that and I say I can't even think of distinctive story progression other than baby Anakin, middle Anakin, Darth Vader. Like that's it. It's just a progression. There's nothing there
it's
about
the
it.
Rise and Fall of Anakin Skywalker.
It really isn't though.
Don't.
It really isn't. No, it isn't. It's basically baby Anakin, middle Anakin, and in the last 20 minutes, then Fall of Anakin. There's no actual like
That was the plan
logic.
from the beginning. That's
Yeah,
how
I
it
know.
started with baby Anakin.
But it doesn't feel cohesive though. It just doesn't feel like, other than he's gonna fall, there doesn't seem like there's like a cohesive feel or style or storyline where I look back and go like, oh yeah, that was inevitable. It doesn't feel like that.
You talked
Yeah,
about context around the movie, and I think now compared to 1999, we have a greater expectation of through lines since we are a culture of binging and watching things very quickly. We don't have time to forget like minor points in the old movie before the next one comes out because it's a continuous conversation that never ends. And I know you already brought up Marvel, but Endgame pulled from the shitty Marvel movies. They pulled from Iron Man 2, they pulled from Thor 2, and they still managed to make it work.
Yeah, they did. They fucking crazy. They knocked it out of the park. I don't understand how they did that. Like it's physically impossible. But
They
actually,
like Thor 2
the
didn't
worst
happen.
movie is relevant.
yeah. But, actually, so they
I
made
said
the
they
worst
made the
movies
worst movies
relevant.
relevant.
It's true.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to. So going back on Jam, when you're talking about the prequel trilogies, I don't think that's. I don't even know what the perfect example would be, but definitely it's not the prequel trilogies. But at least there was some semblance of a plan, right? Whereas this one, there was none. Like I was reading an article about how they literally were writing the script. I think someone had been working on The Last Jedi, or I'm sorry, The Rise of Skywalker
Colin
script.
Trevorrow.
Yes, he was working on it, and then they scrapped that and they started over again with J.J. Abrams and a couple of other people, and Kathleen Kennedy was in the room too with a whiteboard. So that to me just tells me there's no plan. There was nothing. And I think, yes, the prequel trilogy, that is not a good example, but what we're saying is there was at least, it felt to me, and I think as well to Brandon, that there was some semblance of a plan. There's something there that we knew there was an overarching story.
You don't have to like it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a good plan, but there's a fucking plan, right? And just there wasn't one here.
I'm not going to argue with that. There definitely was not a plan because even Colin Trevorrow said, "Oh yeah, Palpatine wasn't in my draft. What are you guys talking about?"
So I want to get us kind of unchained. I want to ask you guys one last time. Would you, Jammer, you already said you would recommend this to other people. Pete, where do you stand? Should people go see this movie?
If you're a Star Wars fan, yes. If you're a sci-fi fan, yes. If you're just trying to go to see the movies and you're not a fan of Star Wars or science fiction, I think you could pass on it. That's just how I look at it.
And my call is that you could hate watch this movie. Like enjoy the first 45 minutes and then it just doesn't get any better from there. If you consider yourself a fan of these movies. So from here on out, we're going to be talking spoilers. So you guys can say whatever you want.
Oh, you mean the Snones? The Snones weren't spoilers already?
I don't know if I think in the first 5 minutes of the movie that's really a spoiler. Like I don't.
The Wayfinder? Spoiler alert, there's a Wayfinder.
Yeah. I'm indifferent to those spoilers. Because I think there are bigger ones. So what are your spoiler thoughts on this movie? Like or dislike? Pete, say whatever it is that you want to say, that you have to say about this movie.
Oh, all I gotta say is, boy, that plot armor is thick in this movie, man. Like, holy Moses, when Hux had them dead to rights, and he was like, give me the. He takes the blaster, and I was like, oh, here we go, and they all survive. Yeah. Like, there was a scene when Kylo and Rey are fighting over that ship that supposedly had Chewie on it, and she thought she killed him. I kind of thought that would have been a really interesting way for Chewie to go, but if they would have did it correct? Like if she flash, shows Chewie's face and it gets quiet and then flashes back to Rey and all of a sudden, boom, that's how Chewie goes and she freaks out. I think that would have been an interesting way for one of the main characters. I
felt that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. But I knew it wasn't because as soon as they didn't give you enough to believe that. And just 5 minutes later, Chewie's alive. But it was like, I think they could have done that where Chewie dies in an interesting, sad, and a good send off for him. But it didn't happen and he was alive. So the plot armor was ridiculous in this movie, which I kind of guess I should have suspected.
Yeah, and C-3PO, him losing his memory, then getting it back.
Yeah.
And then Kylo Ren getting stabbed and getting healed. They had literally 3 or 4 separate moments where stuff like that happened.
So in the lead up to Endgame, we kind of talked about this, right? We talked about the fact that in Endgame, we wanted to know what would it cost to save the world. We had that conversation on Those Fanboys talking about the trailers leading up to that movie. And in this movie, like Pete just said, there's just plot armor. Like everybody lives. Everyone lives.
Snap Wexley doesn't live.
Man, fuck that dude. The only people that died in this movie, exactly.
It's Greg Grunberg's character from Force Awakens. It's literally a nobody. It's basically a character they brought in so they can kill off.
He's a red shirt.
Pretty much.
Basically.
Oh, he's wearing a red shirt.
He is J.J. Abrams' friend, and generally he's associated with almost all of his projects.
Yes, I'm looking
for me, that was frustrating because it is a movie essentially about war and the cost of war. And I hate to keep saying this, but in The Last Jedi, you got to see that cost. And, leading a rebellion is not what they made it seem like it was, either in the old trilogy or in how this one ended. And seeing the live human cost of what it takes to overthrow an actual empire, while these aren't supposed to be serious movies, that definitely pushed this series in an interesting direction. And in this one, it's just like, yeah, everyone lives, and there's just no cost to saving the universe. And the only person that died that of consequence, the one that if Kylo Ren didn't die, I would have thrown something at the screen and walked out. That's how pissed off I was, by the time we got to the end of this movie. He needed to die. And the fact that he died, it didn't make me feel anything. I was just like, yeah, you fucking better die. So
that whole thing just felt silly to me.
Why did I think he needed to die?
Yeah. How would that not be a beat of fucking the original trilogy where, do you feel like he earned that death like Darth Vader did?
So the way that he dies in this movie is he sacrifices himself for Rey. So he literally gives up his life energy to save her life. And
it's like a mini redemption arc for him.
Yeah. So he has that's his redemption. His redemption is saving her life. But the thing that almost made it worse was the fact that she kissed him afterwards.
Yeah.
Which really pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because while I understand that in the Star Wars universe, we just kind of lose our minds and kiss our brothers and sisters and kiss some random black dude that we just met. I get that. That's Star Wars. Fine. But this dude has literally killed and pillaged and manipulated. Tell me, Rey, what is it about him murdering his father in front of you that made you DTF? I can't conceive of what I saw in this trilogy that would make that make sense.
So here's the thing. I disagree with you because that was the one thing I felt in this movie that was earned.
Nah.
Really?
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah.
The kiss? The whole kiss?
Yeah. Dude, the freaking sexual tension in The Last Jedi sexual tension was freaking palpable.
Yeah, lots of abusive relationships have hot sex. That doesn't make them healthy.
Oh, I didn't say it was healthy. I just said the kiss was earned.
No. And I'm saying abusive in the sense there's abusive and you literally watch this person murder somebody in front of you.
His own father.
Yeah. And you weren't in this relationship already. You were appalled by this. And it's frustrating to watch, especially when you have, and I'm not saying here, let me back this up. I don't think that Rey should have ended up with anybody, right?
I mean, technically she doesn't end up with anybody because he's a corpse at the end.
No. I'm saying that to preface what I'm about to say.
Okay.
I don't think that she should have ended up with anybody. But the way they set up these characters, it was more likely that she would end up with Poe or Finn.
Right.
So it was weird to me that they hinted that Finn was Force sensitive in Force Awakens. He used a lightsaber. You saw that Kylo Ren knew exactly who betrayed them. And I think that's the reason why. I think that they were paying that off. And in this one, it was like full blown, multiple instances of him being Force sensitive. So it was strange to me that they would set that up, and then his storyline with anybody else goes nowhere. Like he literally ends up with no one, and there's no conversation about it. Like you have no idea what he's going to do or where he's going to go. And it was weird to me that they would set up all that stuff for him and make the two of them parallel in that way. Like he doesn't know his last name either. At least she knows her first name. He doesn't really have a first name. He made that up. Poe gave that to him. And then with Jannah, they set up a relationship, like some kind of relationship, and something where, you know, they were this colony of other stormtroopers that had betrayed the First Order. That also goes nowhere. And it's just weird to me that they set all of those things up, but at least between the two of them, Rey and Finn, and it's just like, I don't understand how you end up kissing a dude that murdered somebody in front of you.
And didn't he try to crack her skull open like a walnut in the first one, trying to get a map out or some crazy shit? Or what am I getting?
I mean, no, he was using the Force. He was using the Force to get it out of her head.
Yeah.
Not cracking with a walnut, but it was basically he was peeking into her brain to find the map.
I think he was Force.
Was the implication that it was painful?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because she was resisting for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, just let it happen. Don't fucking resist.
Oh, that's not my point. My point, I thought you meant physically she was cracked. She was smashing her head open or something.
Figurative, metaphorical, the implication was that it was painful.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it's funny, Brandon, you and I talked about this. I just kept thinking about Justice for Han when I saw the whole thing taking place. Yeah. You know, like, because you can't redeem him. I don't know. I didn't like that take. I just didn't like that direction.
I don't know. I kind of disagree because if Darth Vader gets redeemed, Kylo Ren gets redeemed because Kylo Ren is Darth Jr. Like we don't see a lot of the shit that he does, but he does some heinous shit.
But that build up to that scene.
Loving up on his burnt ass after that.
What's that?
I said no one was loving up on his burnt ass after that. He threw the Emperor into. He
true.
Pitched him into a hole, and then his son was like, "Dad, I love you." He was like, "Hey, I love you too," and that was it.
We got to see him play a harmonica for a bit. That was cool.
So yeah, I was so frustrated with this. So
I hate that I feel like I've been put in a position to defend little moments from this movie because I don't even like this movie that much. I don't know. I hate that.
I'm glad because it's super fun to debate this. So here's another question then. The other thing that doesn't make, I guess, I think the easiest way to say this, and you could probably write an entire article about this, Finn has a really big problem throughout the course of this series. And it's weird to me that they said that Poe was the one that was supposed to die in The Force Awakens. But as I watch these movies, I feel like they certainly had no idea what to do with Finn. And you just have these moments where Rey is like, hey, if I don't make it back, Chewie, I want you to tell Finn, and then it just leaves. And then in this movie, you have the same thing where Finn is like, hey, Rey, I want to tell you something. And they don't tell you what it is, even though we know what it is now. And it's not what they set it up to be. So do either of you know what he was going to say to her?
No, I think I was told that the Force sensitivity is probably what he was talking about. But I thought it was going to be like, I like you, Rey.
You.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Well,
and we'll never
know. Force Awakens, there was definitely some vibes.
What'd he say?
He said that it was, I'm Force sensitive.
Oh, well, that's boring. Why did he not feel like he could talk it with Poe in the room?
Exactly.
Yeah, it made no sense.
Yeah.
That was malarkey.
Even though that was a great line. I love that.
Which one?
Because I did want it to be that I love you, because I loved when Poe said, oh, you're going to talk about when I'm not here. Because I feel like those moments of awareness, like talking around people, don't happen a lot in Star Wars. Yeah. And so Poe being offended that they weren't going to talk about something in front of him, he's like, yeah, we're about to die and you motherfuckers are keeping secrets.
Yeah, I like that. That was fun.
I will say what I did like was that little alien working on C-3PO.
Yeah.
I like that little alien. Forgot his name, but when he like
Finney or something, Babu Frick.
Yeah, like, that was funny. And then when they saw him again in the spaceship when everyone arrived, yeah, and he's like cheering. Like, I actually kind of like that. It's small, but I enjoyed those small pieces. But then the whole thing with C-3PO, they just it's like it's all for naught. Like him losing his memory, and then all of a sudden, he sees R2, and R2's like, here's your memories. Like,
and they even set it up. They're like, yeah, his memory banks are unreliable. There's no way I can get my memory back from him. And it's like, oh, no, you're wrong. Like, here it is. You're wrong about the odds, C-3PO.
They're
Tanya,
not reliable.
Do you remember in Men in Black International, Tanya, they had like the little alien, like the tiny one that was with them all the time?
Yeah,
Kumail Nanjiani.
Okay, yes. It was played by him. Do you remember? You didn't like him, right?
No, he was the thing I did like about it. I just thought it felt like the cash grab part of the movie, where if it had been popular, it would have been like Funko dolls and all that kind of shit.
I would love to know what you think about Babu Frick, because I think that he actually had that connection with me that I think they were looking for in Men in Black International, because he would like say he spoke broken English, and it was just really cute. And he was working on C-3PO, and he's like a dude working on your car. He's like, hey, blah, your memory go blank, blah, blah, blah. And it was just funny. I enjoyed it.
And C-3PO I thought was great too.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I thought he was
because, well, yes.
Let me try this again. His arc of having a memory, then not having a memory, then having a memory, that didn't work for me. But him as like his involvement and his lines, I think were great.
He did, and I love that he like questioned everything, and he's like, this doesn't make any sense, like this is a bad idea, and like I like, even though that's generally his character, for some reason it resonated a little bit better in this one. What I didn't like was, so in the trailer they play this moment and they're just like, I'm taking one last look at my friends. You feel that moment watching the trailer, but in the movie they don't really seem to care or even react to that moment.
Yeah.
And
because yeah.
And it was played more for laughs. You're like, I guess. Like, even up to like right before that moment, they were just like, yeah, we're gonna rip his brains out, and it's fine. They just seemed very whatever about what they were about to do. And even when he said that, the reaction wasn't what I expected it to be. And it's weird watching a moment in a trailer that plays way better than it does when you're watching the movie, because you expect that after 45 minutes to an hour of buildup that you would feel it even better. Yeah. But it fell flat and pissed me off kind of.
It's because they honestly didn't earn it. They didn't, because he wasn't involved very much in the movies.
I don't mind him not being involved. That's not the thing that did it. It was mostly because they played it for laughs, and not one of them seemed to care about him.
Did you actually think they played it for laughs? I don't think it doesn't seem like it was played intentionally for laughs.
I'm sorry. They played him for laughs, and no one seemed to have any earnest feelings for him outside of R2.
Gotcha.
And he's just a droid, man. He's not human.
Yeah, that moment would have played way better had R2 been in the room. And like he had looked at him, like, I'm taking one last look at my friend or something. Like, if it had been to someone who we know genuinely has a friendship with him, that would have been okay. But none of these people seem to care about him.
Yeah, you're right. They didn't. And even after it happened, they kind of were like, just like, okay, moving on to our next thing. They didn't seem to care after it happened.
Yeah, because right after that, he's screaming at him. He's like, get your ass, like, move your golden medal ass or something like that. It's like, dude just had a lobotomy.
I don't know. I think do they have that attachment? You think they would have that attachment to him? I mean, most of the fans do, because he's been synonymous with the show or the series for so long, Star Wars. But do you think they really would be that attached to C-3PO in that moment?
They don't seem like they figured out if droids are machines or you know what I mean, like laptops or cyborgs that.
They don't really care.
Yeah, they haven't sorted it out yet, and you see it both ways. Is this your friend or is this your TV set?
To your point, Pete, I think you're right in the sense that we as the audience have a better connection with them. And I think that was bad filmmaking in the sense that I think that maybe that's what they were trying to do, that we're his friends. Like, we're the ones that are more invested in him than the people on screen. And there was some way that they should have been able to convey that, but were unable to.
Yeah, because we do connect with him more than I think the characters do, and they try to speak to that with him having a friendship with these guys, but also not portraying that friendship that much. It was another unearned moment.
Yeah.
I just have a list of complaints about this movie, and I'm going to try not to do that, and I'm just going to ask you guys questions about my complaints.
Okay.
Knights of Ren. What the fuck?
Who?
Exactly.
Underutilized, yeah. And it was worse because they're supposed to be badass, and they were dispatched with easier than the freaking Praetorian Guards.
I was about to say the guards from the last fucking movie.
Yeah.
I remember Rian Johnson being like, yeah, I didn't want to kill them because I think, J.J. Abrams has a plan for him. What? What was your plan?
J.J. Abrams, meanwhile, what? Shit. Okay.
It's a lot of pressure.
Spits out his root beer. He's like, oh, fuck. I don't know why root beer, but
these guys, they were so bad. They couldn't handle. So the guards from The Last Jedi just almost killed him when he had a lightsaber. These dudes couldn't handle him. I can't even with these guys. They were just so useless and so pointless. For all of the buildup.
They look cool.
Doesn't it seem like they happen a lot with this trilogy with Captain Phasma and the Knights of Ren? They have all this build-up, and Captain Phasma had 5 minutes of total screen time, probably.
Though in fairness, Captain Phasma didn't have build-up outside of the marketing. It was just... Whereas the Knights of Ren had build-up within the movie.
True.
Wait, did that make sense?
It does. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, you go take those Knights of Ren and you go do X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, these dudes must be pretty... to roll with Kylo Ren, I expect them to be just a little bit more badass than that. And the other thing that pisses me off about them is in The Force Awakens, a big deal was made of the fact that that Finn defected. Shouldn't Kylo Ren be like, I fed you guys. You motherfuckers put your feet up under my table, slept under my roof, and now you're just going to try and kill me? There was no conversation, no nothing. Right?
Yeah, there was no time for conversation. There should have been something, some sort of emotional interaction of some kind, some implication of a previous relationship.
Yeah, you could have hinted at some great battle. Yeah,
or I think it's the other way around.
All it would have taken is one line about some great battle they had that would have taken 1 or 2 lines between the two, and then it would have established it, I think.
I mean, I probably would have complained either way.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it wasn't good. Though I will say I do like the evolution. This plays into it. The evolution of the Force talk ability between Kylo Ren and Rey, the way it culminated, I thought was really good.
To being able to pass physical notes between each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
So for those who don't know, Tanya specifically, in the Last Jedi where they were able to Force talk, they could see each other and stuff, and then there was an implication there because you'd have her being in a rainy area and him being on the ship, and then at the end of the conversation you see water on him. So there was an implication that parts can flow into each other's thing. They had this awesome fight scene in the middle of the movie where what were they fighting? I forget. Were they fighting each other? Yeah, they were fighting each other, but then certain parts, they were interacting with certain parts in each other's background to the point where he ended up cutting down the bust of Darth Vader in his ship and then realized, oh, you're in my ship. I didn't realize that. So that was a cool way that I thought they used it, and it was cool. I thought it was cool. And at the very end, she was able to pass him a lightsaber through the Force, and I thought that was cool. I thought that was one of the things that worked really well because it built off of the thing that was established in The Last Jedi.
And that thing you just said led to a really funny moment. I like the Kylo shrug.
What was the moment?
The Kylo shrug.
Yeah, I don't remember what you're talking about.
So he takes the lightsaber and when he pulls it down, the Knights of Ren step backwards and he kind of does that Han Solo shrug. You don't know what I'm talking about?
I mean, I don't remember. I saw the movie once, man.
The first time
was that right after he got the lightsaber?
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay. I think I remember that scene.
Yeah, I think I remember the
It didn't pay off to me. I don't remember it the way you do because obviously you explained it to me, but I vaguely remember that what you're talking about.
I think I just like Adam Driver, and I think that. So to me, he kind of strikes me as the Obi-Wan of this movie in the sense that his performance throughout the course of this movie was probably my favorite, or these series of movies has probably been my favorite thing about it.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I just, win, lose, or draw, like the script being what it is and the plot being what it was, he did what he could with it. And the thing that he did with it was like Ewan McGregor level, like I can tolerate you outside of whatever they're doing. So that was, good on him.
Yeah.
Because the rest of this movie is shit.
You hate it so much.
It's weird. Before we started doing this podcast, there was a part of me like, I don't really hate this movie. I'm just exhausted. And then the more I talk about it, I'm just like, fuck this movie.
That's how I feel about it too. Like when I was there, I was fine. But the more I talk about it, it's just like there's so many things wrong with this movie. But like I said, that's fine if there's a lot of things wrong with this movie. It sucks, but it's, I don't really have that strong of an opinion about the movie when all's said and done. It's just there was a lot of mistakes. There were a lot of things, a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of mistakes, a lot of writing issues, a lot of little plot holes here and there. Like, yeah, it wasn't great, but in the moment, I was entertained for the most part.
Isn't that kind of what you get with a J.J. Abrams movie?
Yeah, it really is. That's textbook J.J. Abrams. As much as I love the 2009 Star Trek movie, if you think about it too hard, it really starts to tip over.
Speaking of which, thinking about things a little bit too hard. So Palpatine fucks?
Yeah.
Like that's yeah.
Tanya, you don't know this yet, do you? Have we talked about this at all?
Nope. You say it, Jammer. You've known it the longest. You break the news to her.
Okay. Tanya.
Yes.
Rey is his granddaughter.
But not like Anakin, I made you manipulating midichlorians type. There is some
old-fashioned sperm.
Old-fashioned
Spacey sperm.
Senator Palpatine getting
That's
down.
That's what they picked.
I mean, come on, here's the thing.
Her,
Donald Trump has a wife.
He has multiple kids.
Yeah, he has kids. So it happens.
Has multiple aborted kids too.
Yeah, it happens. But basically, so the implication here is that like your parents are nobody. In this movie, they decide, they chose to be nobody. Which is bullshit. But then
they became alcoholics because of who their dad was.
No, basically they ran off because they wanted to escape the dad, because I don't remember specifically, but they wanted to escape Palpatine. And I just imagined the scene from Austin Powers where Dr. Evil is in therapy with Scott, and he was like, but Scott, who's going to take over the world when I die? And I pretty much think that's what Palpatine said to his son. And when his son was like running off, he's like, no, I want to take over the galaxy, Dad. I want to do something else. So he ran off with Rey, and then they end up leaving her on Jakku. And
because they're douchebags just like their dad?
No, because they wanted to make sure they're good people. Safe. They want to make sure she was safe from him because the dad was searching for them to claim her or kill her. Or I don't know.
They left
it wasn't
her with
clear.
People. They didn't just leave her in a fucking...
They didn't leave her in a ditch. Like, they didn't do an Oliver and Company and leave her in a cardboard box to be not enough.
So the dude from Force Awakens, the one that was like, that's worth 1.5 portions. That dude, that's who they gave her to. That's his arm holding her. That's who they gave her to.
Yeah. And don't worry about it. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And the other
was a straight apology for the Last Jedi. That's what that was.
This is literally how I imagine it. This is like the worst. This is the best way I can imagine. I could talk about it, because a lot of people they bitch about, because I say this doesn't respect the Last Jedi, and then commenters are like, the Last Jedi didn't respect the Force Awakens. Where I'm like, no, it's not the same thing. It's basically here's the way it works. It's like as if J.J. Abrams had a conversation, or he started talking to Johnson, and then Johnson replied with, oh yeah, and this, and then J.J. Abrams basically didn't even acknowledge that what he said, and then he continued saying what he was going to say anyway, regardless of the conversation. Johnson continued.
The Avatar guys in M. Night Shyamalan.
What do you mean?
Like the Avatar guys in M. Night Shyamalan, the guys who wrote the cartoon. They were like, we were telling him all this stuff, and he was just like, not.
Oh yeah, basically like that. It's like he didn't even hear it. It went straight through his brain. It's like, hey, so I went to, or I don't know. Let's see this. I think I could explain this in a way. It's like, oh, I went to the park, and then Johnson's like, oh, and you saw a deer, and he's like, so yeah, I saw a deer, but no, it was a buffalo, and then we did this thing over here.
It's like every conversation you've had with a significant other, like every other conversation you've had where the person is just like, you never told me that. We were sitting on the couch, and I fucking said to you, Snoke dies, and then you were like, okay, fine, whatever.
He's like, I thought
you just wanted to go back
lives.
to watching reruns of Lost. That's all you wanted to do is go back to watching Lost. So then you went back to watching Lost, and you had to come back and make this fucking movie, and you realized Snoke was dead. And you looked at me and got angry. That's
and then
happened.
You said, you should have told me Snoke died. And you're like, I did. You're like, nah.
I did. You
didn't really try.
You looked at me and you fucking nodded.
Yeah. But basically,
and that's how you come to invent beating people up from another room.
Yeah.
While you're not in the same room with them.
J.J. Abrams asked questions. Rian Johnson answered a lot of them. And then J.J. Abrams answered them differently. That's pretty much what happened.
Okay.
Does that make for an entertaining, cohesive movie?
No, it doesn't. It does not.
Well done and not liked because of nostalgia and because of, let's give it an A for effort because it belongs to a franchise that I love.
The sad thing is that a lot of fans like this movie.
They're such idiots.
That is the sad thing, is that people are going like, oh my god, this makes up for The Last Jedi. And I'm like, fuck you.
They say that every movie.
Venom completely changed my perspective on critic and fan reviews. After Venom happened, I'm like, whatever. I don't know what's real anymore. So, like, I don't know who to trust. I used to trust critics on Rotten Tomato. Then I used to trust the fans on Rotten Tomato, or IMDb, whatever it is. Then Venom came out, and it just completely blew my mind. And I'm like, I'm done.
Where were you when I was arguing bad data? Was I talking over you?
No, I was listening very patiently and intently, like a student.
He was just getting his feet wet. Like he just got here, right?
Yeah.
Next Star Wars should be a Bandersnatch.
No.
It should be a Bandersnatch. Because
my
nobody
God.
has a real
Another
opinion.
Choose your own adventure, Star Wars.
No.
Because
You are
that way
right,
nobody has a
Tanya.
real opinion about it. If you don't like your fucking ending, pick something else.
Man.
That is exactly, Tanya. That is the best idea you've ever had in your entire life. And you should definitely pitch that to Disney. They'd probably be all about it. Get it on Disney Plus.
It's called
Star
Knights of
Wars,
Republic.
Bandersnatch.
It already exists. Just go play Knights of Republic. Because I am firmly in the camp, and I said this to Pete like a week ago, that the best stuff that they're doing with this franchise is not the movies. It's the video games. It's the comic books. It's the books. It's apparently the TV shows. Because whoever is heading these movies just can't get their shit straight.
No, it kind of reminds me of the
DC. The best things about DC are the animation and the video games. That does not stop them from wanting to do live action. And every once in a while, they crank out a Shazam and a Wonder Woman. It happens. Star Wars doesn't have a Wonder Woman. Star Wars hasn't had a Wonder Woman since the original trilogy.
I don't know. I really like Last Jedi. That was my Wonder Woman.
Okay.
So I posed the question, like, we all love, I think I was talking with Brandon about this. We all love, well, not all of us, but a lot of people love Star Wars so much. But how many of you would actually put a Star Wars movie in your top 5, maybe top 10 of all time?
There you go.
I don't do top 10 or top 5s.
Yeah.
I don't do
Or
that.
just, would you put it in, like, you would say it's one of your favorite movies? Would you ever say that? Like, or
I
would you
don't-
say,
yeah.
Empire Strikes Back, hands down, is one of my favorite movies.
I think
Okay.
I don't know, honestly, I think I might do that for The Last Jedi, to be honest. I really love The Last Jedi quite a bit. Probably
This movie
irrationally.
makes me hate Last Jedi. Because
Yeah,
I
but
wasted my
I think of The Last Jedi as its own separate entity, though.
but it's
Same
not.
with The Force Awakens. I know. I'm just letting you know what I do.
It's
I just
not
let you know
in
what
the
I do.
sense- I got you. But it's not in the sense that this movie took a big dump all over it.
Yeah.
Like
Doesn't mean I can wipe it off. I could wipe it off.
I mean, no, I can relate to an extent because I will sit here and say I like Thor 2, but I understand that it is not a good movie and it is not a strong Marvel movie. And when they pulled from it in Endgame, that was fucking magical that they were ever able to even like pick something from it that was usable in this final movie. But just because I like it doesn't make it good. That's not how that works. I'm about to throw Nick under the bus. We had a conversation about our favorite TV shows of the decade, and he mentioned Mandalorian.
Oh, Nick.
Okay,
He said of the decade?
He said he was nearly ready to call Mandalorian one of his favorite shows of the decade, and he said, well, it does have to do with my love of Star Wars. And I said, well, then does that have to do with the quality of the show itself? And he agreed, no. I think a lot of you fans cannot separate your love for the franchise from objectively evaluating the quality of the show or the movie in front of you.
I 100% agree with you. That's so true. But I think that's true for everybody. Nobody can separate.
Nobody. This is not a both sides are bad. No, it is not.
No, I disagree. I don't think it's impossible for any critic to separate their own personal experiences and biases from their reviews. And I think it's just about acknowledging what those are in your reviews or in your discussion.
Then not enough people are doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because once you do it, you stop doing it. That's the whole point.
Once you do it, stop doing what?
Once you acknowledge your biases, holding on to them becomes almost like a cognitive dissonance. Like you can't. Those things, you know what I mean? So the fact that like you can't work on it and then still have the same result.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't even know what else to say about this movie. I hate it because I don't hate. God damn it! I don't want to hate it. That's
the thing is I really don't hate it. It's just there's so much wrong with it. It managed to entertain, but there's so much wrong with it.
I think it's the best way to describe that, Jammer. It's like you want to like it, you don't hate it. There's just a lot wrong with it. That is like the best way, at least for me, to describe that movie. I think I'm gonna steal that from you when people ask me about it.
Go for it.
So I think another way for me to describe how I feel about this movie is like comparing it to Captain Marvel. Oof. I could watch Captain Marvel and say I don't like that movie. But then I could also look at it and say that the effect that it has on the other movies, like the impact that it has, some of the things that it changed or did or retconned, almost make me hate it. And so
the first Avenger?
Yeah. Or that, Fury's Eye, and just like stuff like that makes me hate that movie. I don't actually hate it, but when you think about it in the context of the things that it affected in the other movies, I hate it.
You feel so strongly about it. Like you don't know what else to call it other than like, why do I feel this strongly about this? This must be hate.
Like Iron Man 2 is not a good movie, but it didn't shit on the rest of the Marvel universe. It didn't ruin anything else. This movie isn't a good movie, but it also shits on the movie that came before.
Yeah, I think I have a weird thing where I'm able to disconnect movies and things from each other. Because I've always been that person who's like, if the ending sucks, the ending sucks. I still liked 3/4 of it. Or if there's something in a franchise that's like, oh yeah, that's not good. I'm like, yeah, but the other one's good. So I could separate that. I'm weird. That's just what I'm able to do.
There was nothing about this movie that made me like it that much. And the closest thing I have to compare to what you just described is the Duel of the Fates from Phantom Menace. I don't like that movie, but I love. Yes, the music,
it's great.
The choreography, like everything about that moment, and that it's like, why couldn't this have been 2 hours of this?
Well, it's like me with Episode 3, the ending of Episode 3, watching Anakin and Obi-Wan, and don't do it. I have the high ground, and that whole everything, right? You know. Right, it's just, but outside of anything else and what you just described, I'm good. I'm like, no, I'm okay with, like it's just.
I don't know why. I actually like Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, it's weird. You should get that checked out.
I like that. So I understand why people don't like it, but I enjoy it.
The dialogue is terrible. I think it's the dialogue.
We're going down a path I can't follow. Liar! You're with him.
Nisa Jaja Binks.
My new empire.
Yeah. Like, there's so many lines from Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace that are just as bad, if not worse. Like, when he's describing, what did he say there? Like, so there's sand.
It gets everywhere.
Attack of the Clones, he's like, I would be afraid because, you're a senator and da-da-da-da. Like, come on. Like, all of that stuff was dumb. It's just the bad dialogue throughout that entire trilogy.
No, it's because I'm so in love with you. So love has blinded you?
It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense for the conversation they're having.
They're having another Abrams and Rian Johnson conversation. It's basically the dialogue there.
So I guess the thing I don't understand about, Joe, your opinion, and I'm going to pick on you again. It's almost like you recognize all the faults in the movie. And you're a film guy. You're a film student guy. Yeah. And so you understand all the things that are technically wrong with the movie. That the pacing is bad, the direction is bad, the script is bad. Yes. But you'll find this one thing and still say, okay, well, then it's not an objectively bad movie because of this thing, and I like it. So I don't understand how you can add up all these things that are, okay, what did I misunderstand?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
No, I'm ready to learn.
No. I mean, I'm not going to teach you anything. This is all going to be opinion situation. That's the thing. So here's where it comes down to. I'm able to say like, okay, yeah, it's not great, but here are some separate strengths that I think should be acknowledged or can be acknowledged. There's some good moments here and there. There are also some things that I really don't like, but I also recognize that these things that are quote unquote objective strengths are only objective because people have talked about it for so many years. I'm like, what makes an objective strength? It's all storytelling, it's all art. And I've got to this point where I'm like, if something makes me feel good, but is still quote unquote objectively bad, is it really objectively bad if it somehow resonates in some way? And I don't want to take away the personal experience that someone brings to it. Like, if I come from a specific background that somehow resonates with me in a certain way, even though it is quote unquote objectively bad, can I actually call it that? I really don't know.
You just did it to me. I said Revenge of the Sith. I enjoyed it. You were like, pfft.
Yeah.
Sound like
go see a doctor.
I was fucking with you.
When you talk about that, this reminds me of Fast and the Furious fans. Like, the movies are not good, but people love them. So
yeah.
Excuse me, what?
But they're not presenting them to the Academy for anything. They're not calling them.
True. This is very true. I'm not.
Yeah, every Fast and Furious fan will say to you, "Yeah, they're not good, but I love them."
Exactly, and that's how I'm not. Brandon, I'm not saying like Tokyo Drift. I love Tokyo Drift. That is an awful movie. That has some of the worst lines. But I will watch that movie.
I would never.
I enjoyed it. I don't know.
You want to know a fun fact? I was thinking about writing an article, and I just wanted to see something. And I did all of the Rotten Tomatoes scores, like the critic scores for Star Wars up through episode 8 and Fast and Furious all the way up through 8. They are like 1 point off. So like in the 70s, low 70s. So I think Fast and Furious has an average score of 72 point something %, and Star Wars as a franchise only is 75%.
But I think it really does show that a lot of it also has to do with what you're trying to do with each movie. And I don't think the Fast and Furious movies are trying to do anything else other than just be ridiculous and fun a lot of the times, whereas Star Wars has a lot more boxes it needs to check in order to be considered a decent movie by people.
When JJ was checking them boxes, baby.
I don't understand how we can give this a pass when we live in the world with Fury Road.
No passes.
Which is just... You see what I mean? Like, Mad Max Fury Road barely had dialogue, and that is a stellar, beautiful, well put together, well constructed, well paced movie with a fucking story that made me tear up at the end. I mean, are you kidding me?
Wait, and by contrast, another.
I don't think anyone's gonna say this is better than Fury Road.
I'm not saying. I'm saying just if you're gonna say there's no such thing as objectively good and objectively bad, how do we honor and how do we acknowledge something as structurally perfect as Mad Max Fury Road with fucking
I'm just presenting questions. I have no answers, Tanya. I have no answers for you. I'm sorry. I wish I can answer these for you, but like a lot of things, art is one of those things that I'm not sure can be objectively done. Yeah, it is what it is.
I will give you a reason why this movie is objectively bad. I will tell you why.
Okay.
Watching this movie, so Tanya, remember how embittered Luke was in the last movie? He's like, the Jedi need to die, all this other stuff. He talked about how bad and all that stuff was, right?
And he chunked his lightsaber over a cliff.
Threw his lightsaber, and then even beyond the movie, like everybody talked about this, all like, oh, you ruined Luke because of all this other stuff. Like they just talked about all that stuff, right?
I didn't have a problem with that.
What did they say in this movie?
Jammer. Here's the thing.
No,
I can actually defend this. I can defend this.
No, you can explain it in a second. What did he say? And it was the only acknowledgement of that entire movie. What did he say?
So when Rey, she is upset and she goes to that planet basically to become a recluse like him. She tosses the lightsaber into a fire and it is caught by Force Ghost Luke, who says, what did he say? Like a weapon like this should be treated
Jedi's weapon,
should be treated with more respect. And I can defend it because that was his arc. That was his arc in The Last Jedi.
No. That's not all of what he said.
Did he say I was wrong?
They go on. I was wrong.
Right? Yeah, that's what he said.
That was his arc in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, man.
That was his arc in The Last Jedi.
What happened? What transpired to make him think that he was wrong?
In The Last Jedi?
Versus this.
He couldn't even be bothered to come to actually fight that dude in person. He fought him from that fucking mountain. Like an old man in his chair. Like
he killed himself to do that too.
Yeah.
Even still, like But wasn't there a whole thing about the weapons not being the point in the original trilogy? I'm not as fluent on the original trilogy as the average fan, but I feel like they made a point of saying it's about other shit, not your weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, they talked about
I
that.
don't
So
remember.
they negated stuff from the trilogy and from the last movie.
What are you asking, Brandon?
It just makes me hate this movie even more because I don't think that is an explanation for what he went through. I just don't.
That isn't.
I was wrong.
They falsely give them arcs he falsely gave people arcs or falsely inverted stuff to prop up his story when he could have just continued it, but in his own way. That's what it sounds like you're telling. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, this for me in The Last Jedi, his arc was that the Jedi can be something different, and maybe the way isn't to let things destroy or whatever. I feel like he got a renewed sense of like, oh, this is what the potential for the future can be, and therefore became less fucking grumpy or grouchy by the very, very end. And he even said, "I will not be the last Jedi." That whole thing, and that way I could see, okay, Force Ghost Luke. I could see him being a little bit more optimistic. Him thinking like, yeah, you don't repeat. I was wrong before I died. That's why I changed my mind.
Moments before I died. Out. Did you also notice another, not retcon, sort of a retcon, but definitely a fuck you to The Last Jedi, which was if how he looked on Crate was a projection of himself, his Force Ghost did not reflect any of that. He'd look like old man Luke, like he did.
And it was just, he had long hair.
We don't even want you. Yeah.
He gained weight too, which I feel bad about. I feel like fat shaming him, but like it basically, when you're a ghost, you grow out your hair and you can gain weight. So the afterlife doesn't sound too nice.
Actually, it doesn't sound too bad, right? I mean, you can eat and hang out. That's cool.
I guess you're not going to die, so it doesn't matter, huh?
I want to be a Stephen King's afterlife because that guy, Scatman, looked the same. That wasn't even Scatman Crothers, and he still looked the same.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Did you not see Dr. Sleep?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, then that's why you don't know what I'm talking
about.
Okay. Yeah, they didn't even want you to think of The Last Jedi. Like, listen, we know that he projected himself and he looked an entirely different way in that projection, but we don't even want you to think about that last movie, which I thought was fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, there definitely were a lot of FUs. Actually, I wrote an article about it. What the hell did I say?
While you're looking, let me bring up something else. Janna, who came out of nowhere. So, is she Lando's daughter?
I mean, we don't know, but it seemed like they were insinuating something like that.
It was really weird. It was a weird moment because it seemed like either he was gonna like, oh, let's find out who you are, or oh, let's fuck. I couldn't tell which one it was.
Ew.
Yeah,
exactly. Ew. And here's why I think it's the daughter, because there is an article that came out and they talked about, and it was like official Star Wars canon or something like that, that his daughter was taken by the First Order. And if that's true, fuck this tiny ass universe, this galaxy.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you're black, you must be related.
And you just happen to sit next to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck this. I'm disgusted.
Another thing I actually also hate. Don't say hate. Another thing I don't like about this movie is that The Last Jedi really seemed to imply about the whole the gray Jedi aspect, about there not being an actual black or white. But this movie's like, no, black or white.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's one or the other. And I think that's one of the reasons why it bothers me that he said that he was wrong.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I could see that. Fair enough.
Like, I was wrong. There could be some nuance. No, I was wrong. It's black or white. It's one or the other. Pick one. You red or blue.
You know what? I think you changed my mind, Brandon. I also think I agree with you now. About the Luke returning line, because I defended it, and I'm like, no, maybe you're right. Yeah, no, fuck that. No, we're good.
You know what? And it was.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that Brandon does this to. I get so mad when you do this to me.
I like that they paid off the line from The Last Jedi. It's weird. I'm talking about The Last Jedi like I love this movie, but I was in Jammer's position when we were talking about The Last Jedi. I don't love this movie, but I like the ideas that it's set up. And one of the ideas that it's set up was when Luke was training Rey. He was like, holy shit, you went straight for the dark side. Like, what is wrong with you? And in this, you see that it's because she's Palpatine's progeny. And I think that while they weren't going to bring him back physically until, Johnson killed Snoke, I do think that was always intended for that reason.
Say that one more time. I think I lost the thread there.
So there's a line in The Last Jedi when he's like, hey, touch the grass, reach out with the Force.
And she went straight for the dark side. Got it.
And he's like, you went straight for that dark place. What's wrong with you? Yeah. And there was no conversation about that, again, throughout the rest of that movie. And in this, it makes sense if it's true. I mean, not if it's true. If she is Palpatine's granddaughter, you're like, oh, okay. I get why you would go straight for the dark part of that island.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I almost preferred it more in that, than The Last Jedi, to where it's just because she's fucking human and is curious, and it's not our fault that the cool things are always, or the cool things are apparently always dark, like the forbidden fruit or whatever, or
bad for you.
Yeah, like chocolate or candy or cake. Why is that?
I could see it that way too.
I mean, I like that idea that's more of a human aspect. And that's what I liked about The Last Jedi, where it made it less about everyone's related, everyone is special, and we're all connected, and blah 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 blah. You can only have the Force if you're come from a crazy bloodline. Da 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 da.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else to say about these movies?
I like how we didn't even talk about the third act, the really sloppy third act, and all of the Doctor Who bullshit that was happening at the end with
which part?
With the Emperor being carried around by a giant thing from Portal. Like in Portal 2, how you had that one British robot that was carried around by a hand from the ceiling, and it's basically what they did for the Emperor. That was him. And he looked stupid. A bunch of magic mumbo jumbo bullshit where it's like, oh, I'm going to suck your powers out and become
because you're a dyad.
And then he used his magic to freaking lightning a bunch of ships way above him. I'm like, okay, calm down, buddy. What is going on
here? What Doctor Who thing did they do?
It looked like Doctor Who. Just as far as there's a throne room with him, and he's being carried around by this hand from a ceiling, and he just looks like a Doctor Who villain.
I thought that whole thing you're talking about, all the the audience, he had
an audience of cloaked people.
That was really weird to me too. That whole thing you're talking about was just really weird.
Yeah, what do you guys eat? Where do you go to the bathroom?
It was all magic mumbo jumbo bullshit is what it was. And none of it made sense. It was in this moment, we're going to go with this because it matches in this moment. And it was just a bunch of nonsense.
I think I blocked that moment out, and the reason why I didn't talk about it is because I absolutely hated it.
Only because of this. So many times in it. So many times. And I hate saying that because it's internet speak. But literally, there was times where I was just I had my head buried in my hand, and I'm like, this is embarrassing to watch.
Here's why I hated that scene, and the reason why I didn't talk about it. It was because, the wrap up to the main villain, who has been the Blofeld of all of these movies, right? So he's been every voice that Kylo has ever heard. He was in control of Snoke. He was in control of Darth Vader. And so they basically made him the Spectre villain of all of these 9 movies.
Yeah.
This motherfucker. Your one move is the Hadouken spam move. That's your thing? You're the most powerful Sith. And your thing is to shoot lightning at everything. And at the point where you're dying in Revenge of the Sith, you don't stop until Anakin saves you. And at the point where you do it in this, where she's killing you, you don't stop. So the resolution to this movie, Tanya, the way that she dispatches Emperor Palpatine, who by his own admission has all of the Sith somehow living within him now, because that's a thing. He shoots lightning at her until she does the Mace Windu with 2 lightsabers, not just one, back into his face until Harry Potter kills him like he's Voldemort. And he just vanishes and dies. He burns up.
Quote unquote dies. Is he really dead this time?
Yes, hopefully. Unless J.J. Abrams does the next one.
Which is the other reason why I hate this movie. So he does that, right? And you've seen that move before, and it comes off very Harry Potterish. I don't know from that he's actually dead. And again, just stop shooting lightning. She's killing you, dude. Just stop.
Maybe it's the thing like when you're getting electrocuted and you grab onto it because your body gets convulsed into doing it. Maybe it's that.
She is walking towards him with 2 lightsabers.
And he's already zapping himself. It's too late. Like once he commits to it, you can't stop it. It's like you're holding onto the fence because.
So you're telling me that at no point.
I don't know why I'm defending this. I'm being stupid.
I've seen this before, and this is exactly why my face looks the way it does. You know what? I'm gonna stop shooting lightning. How about that? I can't.
Another thing that bothered me about this ending is the logic behind it. So here's the logic, Tanya. Let me paint you a picture. He's in a throne room with Rey, and basically he tells her he's basically he's not fully alive. He's basically Voldemort, where he's not fully alive yet. He needs to take a vessel, and the way that he is going to carry on his brain, I guess, is if she strikes him down in anger, because that's how you do it. If she strikes him down, he will be able to transfer his consciousness over to her body and basically be born anew, right? Okay.
I thought Siths only do that with their what do you call it? Whatever their version of Padawan is.
Yeah, but I guess because that's the granddaughter, that's fine. Whatever, that's a shortcut to it. I guess.
Notice that gaping big pothole you just filled with some bullshit logic, but go.
Yeah, that's not important.
Me? No, I got that from the book.
No, him.
Me.
Oh, you're like, hey, and he's like, yeah, I guess because it's his granddaughter that this is why he can do it. Like, oh,
no, that's probably as much thought as J.J. Abrams puts into it, so it's fine.
Oh yeah.
But anyways,
sorry.
So anyways, and here's the thing. He goes on to say, he opens up the skylight and he goes, "See your friends all dying," and as soon as what was the logic there? As soon as unless if you do nothing, they're going to die. But if you strike me down, what was the logic again?
So if you strike me down, so if you do nothing, they're all going to die.
Yes.
If you strike me down, you will become Empress and you will take control of this fleet and you could tell them to stop, which doesn't make any sense because if he strikes her down or she strikes him down, he becomes her. So
yeah,
why
it doesn't
would he
make any
stop?
sense to me because
And
that,
she
in my mind,
almost agreed to this shit.
No, here's the thing. In my mind, I'm thinking this is bullshit because a Jedi kill lots of people. And in my mind, this is just self-defense to save people and is not something to do with anger or having to do with being a Sith in any way, shape, or form. It is paper-thin logic at best.
She agreed to this logic of, I will strike you down. But he'd already told her, my spirit's going to go into your body.
Yeah,
so
but what else is she going to do? What else is she going to do?
Special brain Sith powers?
But that doesn't make any sense, Jammer.
What other option is there?
I don't know. It's not. It's choose none of the above, right? Vote none of the above.
That's doing nothing. That's choosing one.
Present.
Hey, listen. If the option is if I kill you and your spirit takes over my body, that would be the same thing as me doing nothing, right?
No, it wouldn't. It'd be the exact opposite. It would be doing something and becoming the Emperor.
Body, why would he stop the fleet?
My point is this. My point is there is no good option. But here's my problem is I reject that whole notion because it basically goes back to the whole thing where if you kill a Sith, it's all of a sudden out of anger. Why? I don't quite understand it because I think the implication there is you can't just strike him down and then he transfers. You have to strike him down in anger or in malice because that you're basically giving into your Sith side, right? That's the logic. Am I mistaken there?
Well, and here's
that what Yoda said? Like this part of the path to the dark side, anger.
I really don't know. I don't remember specific. But my point is that because I think that's the loophole they have is he basically killed himself, right? Therefore, he didn't transfer over. I'm saying that. I'm just saying what the movie did here.
I'm just saying.
This is all one big way of me saying I hate the logic they brought into it, to where it goes to the back old black and white ways, where it's like, oh, if you kill someone. Then, or if you kill a Sith, then you become just as bad as a Sith. But don't worry, you can kill as many stormtroopers as you want because they don't matter.
But here's the other problem with that. The other problem with that is why then when Jedi kill Sith, don't the Sith just go, oh, I can just jump into your body?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's the plot hole
that is what I'm saying. It's awful.
Does it mean they're not striking them down in anger?
Yeah,
man.
but that's the thing is, in my opinion, if he
I'm not defending shit. I'm just trying to understand.
Because that's the thing is, if he presented the situation to where you could either kill these, like if you could save your friends and blah 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 blah. I'm like, well, that's like self-defense. That's not malice. That's just like that's self-defense. It's completely different, right? That holds up in a court of law.
You're like the fucking Clarence Darrow of the Star Wars universe. You just come in here and be like, "Excuse me, this is not murder of forethought. This is self-defense. Not guilty."
Yeah, but that was all bullshit. Didn't like that. Didn't like the battle because I had a hard time following it, and it was kind of choppy the way it was edited.
It was also stupid.
It was also stupid. I don't understand why there are a million different Starship Troopers. I said Starship Troopers, Star Destroyers, and who are they being controlled by?
I'd like to know.
Yeah, where do all those people come from to fill it? Like, yeah, you're going to increase our ranks 10,000 fold. Well, okay, then how do you suddenly have enough people to power these things?
And who made them?
To fly them.
Who made
Obviously,
them?
He did 40 years.
But when? By who?
Reasons.
How?
Reasons.
Did people groan when it?
And then they would have to bring all those.
She was his granddaughter. Did people groan?
I did.
I did.
The theater
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so, actually. I think the theater liked the movie.
Kissed.
People didn't laugh in my theater.
They laughed when they kissed.
They did in my theater.
And people, there was a pregnant pause after they kissed, and then when he died, people were like, I think other people were going to be just as upset as me. Like, that's
I'm sure
how I felt. Man. But here's the other reason why that final battle was dumb. So they have this tower that's controlling these 10,000 ships. Let's say it's 10,000 ships that also have mini Death Stars on them. And they fly towards one and you turn it off. And so like, okay, we won't blow up that one. We'll blow up the one on the ship that's controlling it. And then they like go to blow that one up and they're like, okay, we'll turn the one on the ground back on. What? Why wouldn't you just blow up the one when you were sitting right in front of it?
Here's the thing. You're absolutely right, but this is 90% of the movie for me. I don't understand really the plot. I'm just going to know whether or not the good guys are winning. That's basically was me through most of the movie. So I didn't even understand the nuance of their plot. That's the reason why I didn't like the last battle, because I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Oh, and Tanya also Leia's a Jedi. Like, actually fully mastered.
Surprise!
So she always had the Force. And in the last one, people were freaking out that she used Force powers to revive her, like bring herself back into that ship. And there was no explanation.
In the middle of space.
Right. And in this one, they were like, oh, no. She had Jedi training. You just never saw it. And it was never taught.
Oh, wow.
They showed a scene with DH Luke and DH Leia fighting in the Force. And of course, she beats him when they're in the Force. And she's like, you know what? My son is going to die if I become a Jedi. So I'm not going to become a Jedi. But then also at some point later on, she does become a Jedi and becomes a master, powerful enough to train Rey.
Who also knew that she was Palpatine's granddaughter.
Who also didn't tell her.
This is a mess. Okay, I have a question for Pete. You said earlier that if you were just a general sci-fi fan, that you would enjoy this. I'm a hardcore sci-fi fan, more than I'm a fan of Star Wars. What about this would appeal to a sci-fi fan?
It takes place in space. Sorry, I answered your question.
Thank you.
I told you, the stuff looked like Doctor Who. The stuff looked like Doctor Who at the end.
You into some sort of shitty like mockumentary. I was really asking.
I guess I have the general assumption, which is probably wrong at this point. Now reflecting on that statement, that if you like sci-fi, usually you like Star Wars. Not 100% of the time, but everyone who I know that does like sci-fi pretty much enjoys Star Wars for the most part. But that's why I suggested that if you like Star Wars, if you like sci-fi, you probably should see this movie.
But you don't sleep looking, like if you put it on the background, it's still nice to look at.
I think it looks. I mean, all the Star Wars movies, especially the recent ones, look beautiful in my opinion. Like the fight scene on the old Death Star piece when they're trying to get the Wayfinder was really cool. I really enjoyed that, even though the whole reasoning behind that was kind of weird.
It was super long too. I got bored halfway through. I'm like, oh my god, they're still fighting. Stop.
Yeah, it was a little bit too long, but the imagery was awesome. I loved that planet, that ocean scene, and them fighting on there. I thought that was really cool. But
I loved him walking through the water with the lightsaber, even though it was in the trailer. Like, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, like
I watch it on mute, like Aquaman.
I think you probably enjoyed that. Well, okay, so a lot of stuff happens in that final battle scene, but it looked really cool. I thought it looked cool, but I'm with Jammer where I kind of was like, what's going on? Oh, okay, so they want to destroy this. No, they can't destroy that because they moved it to the ship. So now they got to destroy this ship. But Finn, because he's force sensitive, knows. There's this line where he says something like, they're like, how do you know that? He's like, I don't know, I just know, or something like that. It's just a hunch or something. It was just like really weird. Like this entire battle hinges on this hunch that Finn has, and it just seemed kind of wonky and out of place to me at that time, even though we kind of knew he was force sensitive. But he's just like, how do you know? Just it's a hunch.
Isn't it weird that he wouldn't say it?
Yeah. I think it would have been better if he did say something. Like
he knows her. Like, he's around her all the time. It's not like he doesn't know what the Force is. And he has talked about the Force openly in The Force Awakens. It's just strange to me. It's like, it's just a feeling. Like, no, you know it's not just a feeling. Like, you live and work with someone that has the Force. Just say, I have the Force.
He has imposter syndrome. He's like, I'm not really a Force user. I haven't earned it.
So he has to come out to Rey.
He hasn't put in his 10,000 hours. He has put in his 10,000 hours first.
I think he's just in the Force closet, and that's what it is. Like, he can't come out until, like, he can't say what it is until he comes out to her.
I'm talking about
just waiting for the right time.
These people only have a little bit of the Shining, but not enough to really do anything with it. Just enough to have hunches of stuff. That's like literally out of Stephen King.
Well,
yeah, kind of.
They kind of, at least with him, they implied it. His use of the Force seems more than just, I have general feelings, because they stuck a lightsaber in his hand in The Force Awakens, and for 5 seconds, Kylo Ren didn't cut his head off. So I think with training, he could be, maybe a bottom tier Jedi, but he could do something. So I have no idea. I don't really know. I'm just exhausted. I hate this movie.
Do you actually hate it?
There's just so many questions, just question after question after.
Why are you all afraid to say you hate this movie?
Because I didn't, and I watched the movie.
I don't.
Okay, why is Brandon? Why are you afraid to say you hate this movie? You say it and then you immediately back off it. Like, what's stopping you from disbelief?
It's exhausting. I'm trying to think, because I like the first half of it, and I'm trying to figure out what. You know what? I think what's going to happen is I'm just going to talk myself into hating it. I think that's what's going to happen.
It gives you focus.
What did you feel when you walked away from that movie? Like, at the very split second the credits rolled, what did you say?
I was like, this is some old bullshit.
Okay.
Like, all of it was dumb. Like, I hated the end. I hated that at the end, she goes to Tatooine, even though she has no connection to Tatooine. And she says that she's a Skywalker, even though that doesn't make it.
That was weird to me. I don't know.
And she buries Leia's lightsaber in Tatooine, even though I don't even think Leia's ever been to Tatooine. And it just, like...
and that last shot with Force Ghost Leia and Force Ghost Luke, ugh, super cheesy.
Oh, I thought you were going to say with the twin sons. Because I was like, at this point, J.J. Abrams has cemented himself as Sir Remix-a-Lot, where it's just like, I'm going to take these moments from all of these movies that you know and just fucking throw them at you. So here's the twin sons from Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Here is the lifting of the X-Wing out of the bog from Empire Strikes Back. Here, name a scene from this movie, and I guarantee you odds, like, it's 50-50 odds it came from another Star Wars movie. And it's just like, it just drives me nuts. And as I'm ranting and raving,
No, you're just ranting.
Yeah, what was the point of the Emperor telling Kylo Ren to kill Rey when he didn't want her dead?
None. It made sense in the moment as an audience, and that's it.
Within 2 seconds, he's like, hey, you want all these ships? Yeah, I want all these ships. You can have all these ships if you kill the girl. And then later on, he's like, I didn't want you dead. I wanted you here with me so you could be Empress Palpatine. Then why not fucking tell Kylo Ren? If Kylo Ren had chopped her goddamn head off and gone back and be like, all right, I'm ready to get my ships now, then what?
I got nothing, Dan. I got nothing.
Fuck this movie. Fuck this movie.
Palpatine works in mysterious ways.
he rolls into his Star Destroyer, his Star Destroyer with a dude's head. So if he had just done that to the Emperor, like, here's her head, here's her lightsaber, give me my ships, pay up.
Yeah, you have strong feelings for this. I just don't have them. I'm sorry.
It's the more I think about it, it's just like it's quicksand. The more like you struggle, like I didn't hate this movie. Like you're trying to struggle out of not hating, it's just you get sucked down and just fucking hating this bullshit.
Speaking of quicksand, they end up finding the dagger in the quicksand somehow, and then they end up. So this dagger, why did the dagger, which looks ancient, it would be the equivalent of me going like, oh, this ancient dagger, it basically finds the location of a destroyed city in Afghanistan. That's basically the equivalent from freaking the war after 9/11. That's basically the equivalent of this.
You know why that doesn't make any sense? Because so at what point, not what you said, but the setup for the dagger. When was this dagger made? Because the way Rey made it sound, it's like this thing is ancient. Right. So
that gives the location of the wreckage from 20 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
And not only that, it's a location that you have to like stand in a specific spot and match up perfectly to a wreckage that is sitting in a raging ocean. And like
cloudy that day.
What if it was cloudy? What if it was foggy? What if the ocean just moved it a little bit over the course of the past 20 years and it didn't match up anymore?
This movie's so bad.
There's a lot of bad. There's a lot of bad in this movie.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
There's no need for it. There's never any need for it. There's so much lore. There's so much source material. Right. It's the same DC problem. Like, how do you have all the source material and you just choose not to use it for some shit that's like you just made this up and didn't have the time to actually look at the continuity if the story makes sense to everything else. Knowing that there are people who like devote their lives to reading every book and consuming every bit of material. You put something out that is just what the fuck ever. Like, you just don't give a fuck.
So to that point, I don't
get it.
So there are things in this movie that like contradict other force powers and weird things that have happened. So like you said, that there are people who do, like, there are people that work for them that this is all they do. When a movie gets made, they're supposed to be like, you can do this, but you can't do this. The Force does this. This is what's happened in another book. Like they're just like encyclopedias of this stuff. And they work for Lucasfilm. And they weren't involved in this movie at all.
But you've heard that you know that for a fact? Or you're guessing?
I read it somewhere. Oh. I have to find it. I guess. No,
I believe you. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's not good. I blame all the fans that bitched about all the things in The Last Jedi. Also, I blame Lucasfilm because obviously they caved like something that caves. So there's that.
A cave.
Man.
Like a Dagobah cave.
Like a Dagobah cave.
So do you think this falls on Kathleen Kennedy and Iger?
A lot probably, because they probably gave him directives saying, "Hey, address these fan issues." That was probably a directive. I don't know for sure, or maybe it was just Abrams. Who knows? But I'm assuming it's all, at the end of the day, it falls definitely on Kathleen Kennedy because she's supposed to be shepherding this whole thing. Yeah, she's the boss.
Do you think she survives this? Do you think she survives this?
She's already out.
Yeah, she's already out. She contract's up at the end of next year, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, survives. She's fine. Like, honestly, whatever. She made several good movies, in my opinion. Whatever.
Lots of money.
Made lots of money. Yeah, she's gonna be fine. This movie's gonna make money.
Sleep over this. Yeah, it'll probably crack $1 billion because also many fans hate watch things and they'll repeat hate watch things so they can have more things to gripe about.
So if you follow what Brandon wants you to do, hate watch this movie, then you can go ahead and contribute to the $1 billion that this movie's probably gonna make. It'll probably be negative in terms of the franchise as a whole because it's definitely a huge step down at the box office so far. But whatever, it'll make money. They're making money.
They make too much money to be this bad at this. I'm talking about Abrams and Kennedy. Like they make way too much money to be this bad at this.
I still think that she's made mostly good movies except for this one. I like all the movies that Disney has made.
So, it's just mismanaged bullshit. I think.
Jammer, did you like You saying most Jammer? Did you like Solo? I'm kind of curious to know if you enjoyed that.
I mean, I thought it worked if you ignore the fact that it's Han Solo, but
God,
I thought it was
the name of the movie is Solo.
Yeah,
that's tough to do.
No, I get it, but I'm just saying, as an entertaining movie, if you don't get too bent out of shape over who it's supposed to be about, it's entertaining to watch.
So I don't hate Solo as much as I think Brandon does. I think I'm closer to how you describe your feelings towards it, but my thing was no one wanted that movie. That's
like I guess bullshit. I don't get too bent out of shape over like the mythology of things. So usually if I'm entertained or something, I'm usually okay. Yeah, I'll acknowledge that it's not perfect and it has these problems, but I usually don't lose sleep over it.
That movie is the least interesting thing that they could have done with the property and that character. And
I agree.
The most check the block bullshit.
Yeah, I hated it. I hated that.
There's in terms of like, hey, you want this and you want this. There's Solo, and then there's this movie, Rise of Skywalker. Like they're the most check the block bullshit Star Wars movies that exist. Period.
Yeah.
For fact. Like,
I think Rogue One even has that too a bit.
I think that the end is. Yeah.
What's that?
She said she didn't see that about Rogue One.
No, I didn't feel that. Like I didn't feel it was almost like it would be easier for me to look at Rogue One as its own separate thing, not attached to that universe, and probably the most of any movie they put out. Then I couldn't get through 15 minutes of Solo. I turned it off. That's the first time that's the first time, and I don't often do that with like big property movies. I'll do that with like random shit I'll see on Netflix, or it didn't grab me, I'll turn it off. That's probably my first time doing that to like a big fuck this. I'm not sitting through this.
Yeah, I can't with Solo. I have one more question for you guys. So Rian Johnson had this quote that recently came out, and I don't know if he had seen this movie by the time it came out. He certainly wasn't at the premiere, which I thought was interesting. But he had this quote, and he said, "I think approaching any creative process with the purpose of making fandoms happy would be a mistake that would lead to probably exact opposite results. Even my experience as a fan, if I'm coming into something, even if it's something that I think, let's see if, I want to see it on screen, and he sees it and it makes him smile and it makes him feel neutral about it later, but he doesn't think about it afterwards. And he says, that's not something that's going to satisfy me." Do you guys have any thoughts about that quote? I know it was kind of long, but it's basically.
I know which one you're talking about. I read that somewhere. I know what you're talking about.
Okay. He's basically saying pandering to fandoms is bad.
But isn't that what happened with Rise of Skywalker? And then
that's going to be my next question.
Isn't that what Rise of Skywalker is, a big pander to fans, and it's not good? I mean, I don't hate it as much as you, Brandon, but definitely I have an agreement that it's not good.
Yeah, that's why I like the Last Jedi is because I felt like it was actually trying to tell a unique story and do something interesting, and it didn't feel like it needed to check those boxes. Yeah, I 100% agree with him.
Same. Okay. I don't think that following the lore and canon is pandering to fans. I think that's following the logic of your own universe. I think once you start looking at social media stuff, like people were griping about Suicide Squad, and that turned into a hot mess because you start releasing these teasers and then people start giving their opinions about it. Meanwhile, people were all up in arms about Joker, and they're like, fuck you, this is our movie, we're doing it the way we want to do it. And then it turned out to be a good movie because they did what they wanted to do. They didn't listen to anybody's like, oh, they should tone down the violence, or it was just like, wait and watch the fucking movie, you don't know what you're talking about, you haven't seen it yet. Yeah. I would say the one exception that I've seen that as an improvement was that whole Sonic thing, and that still doesn't have anything to do with the movie, is because we haven't seen the movie yet. So yeah, I know that you can't please a million people. You just can't.
Yeah. I think the one thing people do point to, they're like, but Endgame did it. And I'm like, yeah.
Where?
Did what, though?
They basically, that's what they say. Well, you could say that because they decided to revisit all of these specific locations from all of the movies. And that's like a huge act of fan service of its own universe and stuff. And they do all these things. But, they also took risks, in my opinion. I don't know.
So this is the whole thing about people saying words and they don't know what the words mean. Self-referential isn't the same as pandering.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two fucking different things. Totally. Yeah. Oh my God, people are.
I'm just letting you know what people respond with.
I'm not yelling at you. I'm just. This is why you can't pander to. This is why you shouldn't pander to people, because most of the time people don't even know the words they're saying when they're complaining about shit.
Yeah, I know people have quoted Johnson in the past where there's this moment where Mark Hamill on set was saying like, "Oh, you have to think about the fans," and Rian Johnson's like, "No, you don't want to think about the fans. Think about what you want, the story you want to tell." And then people are like, "Fuck Rian Johnson. He doesn't care about the fans."
Yeah, I think that's I just can't.
And then he made Knives Out and told everybody.
Oh my God, Knives Out is so good. Have you guys seen Knives Out?
Yes.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
No, despite doing a podcast on it, we've never seen it.
Oh, I forgot. Oh yeah, I listened to your podcast on it.
Oh, did you? Okay,
Yeah.
I can't even defend you because you actually listened to it. I was like,
I did.
Oh no, I said that knowing that he'd seen it. So not only had you listened to the podcast, you talked to me about it afterwards.
Yeah, I know.
Like, yeah, I agree with you guys about this, that, and the other.
Dude, I take in a lot of shit. I don't retain it. It leaves my brain as soon as it's not relevant. I just remember Brandon being like, "Should we talk about Knives Out with with spoilers?" I'm like, "Yeah, talk about it with spoilers. What's wrong with you?"
That's not what I meant. It was just the last minute reveal.
Yes,
I don't
talk about it all.
I don't know what it was that I was struggling with in that moment to decide what direction I wanted to go. I don't know. I have no idea what happened. It's just a brain fart. That's all I'm going to call it.
It happens. Not to me, but it happens to you.
Says the guy who just forgot he listened to an hour and a half long thing a week ago.
It was 2 weeks, maybe. No, maybe it was.
We all liked it.
Oh, it was so fucking good. It was so good. Oh my God. I watched it twice, and then he posted a commentary track that you can go into the theater and listen to it.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so go check it out.
That's progressive of him.
Yeah.
That's with their phones while they're in the movie theater.
Oh, also, last thing. Rose got sidelined in this movie. Another cowardly move. Rather than actually have her do something interesting, let's just basically have her as an extra.
Again, not even just sideline. It was this thing that happened in The Last Jedi we're not even going to acknowledge. Like, is thing? Did he hit it and quit it and just they never talk about this again? Like, what happened?
Well, the fans didn't like her, so
Yeah.
Man.
The same fans that ran her off the internet. Let's cater to them. Let's pander to them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the other thing that killed. Like, you did this for no reason.
Yeah.
Like, you were up in arms about this thing. Well, I'm sorry, not for no reason, because like you just said, Tanya, you got exactly what the fuck you wanted. Oh God, that upsets me so much.
Yeah.
That they not only did they just run her off the internet, but they got her sidelined as a character.
Yep.
Bandersnatch.
Fuck everybody that likes
Bandersnatch.
And I don't mean like,
you know what they should do at the beginning of Bandersnatch? They should be at the beginning. It's like, okay, first of all, do you hate women and minorities? If so, click this direction. Obviously, there are other complaints, that legitimate ones people had, but yeah, the ones that were freaking pushing Kelly Marie Tran off the internet.
And I hated that whole shit with the fucking casino. That has nothing to do with her as a person or how she looks or her ethnicity or all the other crazy shit people said about her.
You're absolutely right, but yeah, people mentioning that shit is just, it's the worst.
I know, but I mean, it's fine if they preface it like, I'm not racist, but
Yeah.
I will say one last thing, that Star Wars, these new trilogies, has had a chance for me to connect with my son, who's 10, and we went to see the movie together yesterday, and it was a really great time. He's only 10. He enjoyed the movie, but even he started critiquing the movie about like how the Fallen Order only had like an hour of time in the movie. Like, you have this buildup of all these years, and they only had an hour, and they were destroyed in less than like an hour, Dad. And he's like 10. Yep. So, but we got to see The Last Jedi together. He didn't see Force Awakens. He was a little bit too young then, but it just was really, watching him evolve with the Star Wars fandom and then going to see these movies with him was a really nice thing for me personally. Because I got introduced to Star Wars at a very young age. I wasn't a big fan until the prequels came out. Obviously, I was in high school. I had a different mentality, and we all talk about how bad they are now or how we don't enjoy them as very much, especially you, Jammer. I can tell you don't really like the prequels very much. But it really gave me a chance to really connect with my nerdiness with my son. And that's one thing I'm appreciative about all three of these movies. For better or for worse, I got to have a really great time with my son. So
good for him that he's critiquing it, because it's up to his generation to not reboot this shit when he's an adult.
Oh no, they will. Man, I remember seeing The Phantom Menace when I was in high school, and that was the first Star Wars
Phantom
movie.
Menace?
Phantom. Phantom Menace. I was in high school.
Yeah.
No. I remember seeing and feeling like, I had seen the originals in the theater because they had done the special editions and they re-released them. But this was kind of cool at the time because these were the first ones I'd get to see, on the big screen that were new. That was so exciting. Super cool. So that's very cool that you get to experience that with your son.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, it was really nice. And to have the discussion. Now he's 10, we can have a discussion. Start having these discussions about the movie and stuff we liked and didn't like is really cool.
Yeah. That feeling that I had watching Star Wars that young has transferred over to Marvel. I don't know that Marvel will last 40 years in the way that it exists now, where, Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man is still canon, but the feeling that I had watching Star Wars as a kid is completely replaced by what Marvel does now. Like, holy, that is what Star Wars is to me.
Word.
So, anything else? Any other thoughts or feelings about Star Wars or anything?
No, I think no.
I'm glad it's over for now, for the next year and a half.
Ooh, is it though? Because they've got
Mandalorian. People talking about Mandalorian, how it's the best thing since sliced bread. It was funny because the thing I realized when I watched it is like the first, and I enjoy it. I think it's fine. And I finally caught up because I was like 3 episodes behind until yesterday, and I'm like, okay, the last couple episodes are pretty good. But before that, it was just kind of like, it was fine. It felt just like slightly above mediocre. I like it because it's Star Wars, and I like it because it's Western. It appeals to me in that way. But once you kind of get past the novelty of it,
it
had a harder time maintaining my interest. But I know at the first episode, when you have the Mandalorian zapping that ice monster at the beginning, I remember thinking this is like the most dude bro Star Wars has been in a long time. So that's probably why a lot of people are really liking it, is because it's bringing back the macho-ness, I guess, that really didn't even exist that much in the franchise, except maybe with Han Solo slightly. But whatever.
Way to take a dump all over Nick. Good job. He's not even here to defend himself. Nice job.
Sorry, Nick.
Very subtle. Very subtle. But Tanya, to your point, you've got Mandalorian season 2. There's the Obi-Wan series. There is the Rogue One prequel series.
Cassian Andor
and
series.
Then, that's that one. The Rogue One prequel. I call it Rogue One prequel series. A prequel for a prequel. Ugh.
Is Ewan McGregor in the Obi-Wan series?
Yes.
Yes.
Then I will check that one out.
But I'm with you at this point where it's just like I'm not done with Star Wars, but I'm certainly not going to rush out to see anything else unless we're doing it for the podcast. I think I'm just done. Done. Good job, Star Wars.
Hey, I liked Fallen Order. Fallen Order was a lot of fun. I really liked Fallen Order. So play that if you're into video games and you like Star Wars.
And you got time to kill, which I don't, which is the only thing that stopped me from buying that game. Third time, last call. Anything else about any of this stuff?
Thanks for letting me gripe, even though I didn't see the movie. I was careful not to harm.
No, you asked good questions. You asked great questions. You made us think. You made us think a bit.
Always a pleasure. All right. Well, folks, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Jammer, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at JamTheWriter and all of my stuff at lrmonline.com.
Tanya, where can they find you?
JMYA at lrmonline.com.
And Pete, where can you be found?
I will give you my Twitter, but I'd have to spell it out. So just look. Sorry, you can find my podcast. It's called Nerds Adulting, and you can check me out there.
And it's good stuff. I've listened to a couple episodes, and it's quite enjoyable. Yeah, I'm just too exhausted to even do this closeout correctly. Folks, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. We will catch you on the next one. Hasta lasagna.
I don't hate the Rise of Skywalker. I pity the fool.
This fucking movie has crushed my soul.
Joe.
I just can't. Just can't.